Well, welcome, Paul Branthwaite, Senior Executive now in life science industry with Transcript and advising lots of companies, and you see people growing companies and you nurture them through by the very nature of what you do. But you've had a very sort of heterogeneous past, I guess, in how you've come to this position. So
yeah, I know everybody is unique in terms of their career path line, and as like you, Tony, as I move towards the end of my career, it has been not a straight linear pathway. So I'm a pharmacologist by training. I joined the industry in 1979 in the sales and marketing role with a UK-based company. Moved to another company that had the joyous period of having helped launch and then work with cyclosporin A, which made transplantation possible. And that was one inflection point that allowed me to move out of sales and marketing into an R&D competency area, where I was for about 16 years off and on, if you total all of the years, and the various roles I had. Worked in oncology, infectious disease, immunology, pretty much everything. And then I segued from that into a service sector role, so that was with a CRO, and then a completely divergent role, still within the sector, but I became a global headhunter for about 11 years, which on the face of it seems really quite tangential, but there was method in that particular madness. And then that actually helped me inordinately when some of my current colleagues came together thinking about setting up Transcript, and where I head up the business development and the recruitment arm of things, and we are a consultancy. So all of my background experience certainly helped in the foundation and the population of both the people within the organisation who I'd often worked with previously or worked for, and secondly, because and the business acumen element, doing the BD piece was almost going back to my roots. So that's where we sit, and I now head up business development and recruitment, and ostensibly have a senior partner role within the organisation.
But it's like you say, it can appear to go off at a tangent sometimes, but there are common causes and themes through that, and motivations, I guess, as well.
Absolutely, and certainly when I was a headhunter, the fact that I had worked in many of the areas that these people were, top of their particular trees, meant that I could speak to them in their own language, understand what they were doing, and therefore could make some really good judgment calls as to whether or not they would fit in whatever industry position was being offered. And some of those searches were truly bizarre. One I always think about is a joint academic industry position, where I had to fulfill the requirements of not only a major top 5 pharma, but also had to deal with the politics of Cambridge University, which let me were vicious, but successful. Took the role, then climbed up the corporate ladder very successfully. So it's but when I was talking to those people, it was a mindset that I've done aspects of this job, therefore I understand what you're doing. I understand what you can do, and that was the key to that success. So it was all concatenated.
I guess it's a slightly different question to what I was going to ask you, but that part of your career where you were doing the headhunting and placing, but then engaging with a lot of people at the top of their game, they've reached senior levels already. Was there elements from that and those conversations you think that might have shaped how you viewed the next opportunity coming up for you?
Well, bear in mind I came to headhunting relatively late on. So it wasn't a part of a staged career path in the normal sense. What it did allow me to find out is some of the best people who are now at Transcript. I mean, that's that was part of the serendipitous element, is that I knew where the bodies were buried. I knew where the bad ones were, and we left them alone.
Yeah, and I guess that's the thing. Your network, I guess, is such a strong network, and it doesn't leave you in that sense, irrespective of what role you were in.
Well, I always allude to I've got a huge Rolodex, and for those people who remember Rolodexes, those paper-based, effectively a spreadsheet, a rolling thing. But to put it in context, I've got something approaching 8,000 first level links on LinkedIn, which is the new equivalent of the Rolodex. And it helps in the BD sense, because I can always find somebody who I know or have access to in all of my targets when I've got my BD hat on. And certainly if I need to recruit for transfer, I can track people down, which is a very useful tool, by the way.
Indeed, yeah.
Get on it.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's one of the things that people often forget, in my experience, is they sort of start using things like LinkedIn, particularly from their early careers, once they're looking for the next job, rather than keeping their profile active and being engaged and already on the radar. It's people are searching for you whilst you're searching for that opportunity sometimes.
Yeah, and I will allude to it later, I'm sure, but if you have contact with people, it makes sense not to completely lose it, or at least leave their ambit with a bad taste in their mouth, because it's I've said one thing I have learned: this is a very small industry. Reputation is everything, but also connections are vitally important to your career, because you never know when you might need people. But also, when they ask for help, you give it, and it should be free. You shouldn't be looking for a quid pro quo, because people have helped me. So why wouldn't I help somebody else? It's part of the game.
I think, the world works that way, and particularly in a sector as highly networked as ours. I think
absolutely.
But I'm sure it works like that in many other industries. I've just not experienced those.
Almost certainly. It's an aphorism. It's not what you know, it's who you know. Whether in politics or business or just life in general, that's the reality. We are a social animal.
We are indeed, and I guess on that, looking back then at your career, I suppose what we're trying to get out from these conversations, Chris, is how do people address thinking about their future pathway and next move? What sort of things influenced your decisions to?
Yeah, obviously, and I think you know this, Tony. Anyway, you make decisions based on the knowledge that you have at the time. Some of those decisions are better than others. Life isn't linear, nor are jobs, and you and I both have had opportunities that have come our way, and I'm sure that some of those that we just passed by, which we may have regretted belatedly. But I always took the view that if there's something that was an opportunity that came our way, which looked interesting, and it's not going to kill me financially, because obviously being a family, you've got to factor that aspect into it, because you can always go back. If you make a sideways, it doesn't work. It doesn't matter that much, because there are always ways to go back. And in some ways, I've come full circle from where I started to aspects of what I do now. So,
and I guess as well, and you'll be, you've seen how the industry has evolved over that period. Do you think the opportunities or the is there a right or wrong pathway? I don't know, but the opportunities people can follow, do you think those pathways have changed to when you were set?
I think that they inevitably have. The training grounds. I mean, this is one of the areas that in particular be in my bonnet, as you know. I think the natural training grounds of my generation were big pharma. The opportunity to learn and evolve while you were doing the job were enormous, and a lot of us who are in our current roles have benefited from that. that is less clear nowadays. And one of the questions I would always ask of in a job interview, what are my opportunities to grow? How can I increase my skill set beyond the ones that you're actually hiring me for? And if there is no opportunity there, then you have to question their commitment to you as an individual, because it works both ways. You know, you're working for a company, the company should work for you.
Yeah, and I guess that's something I've noticed even in the conversations we have within our One Nucleus network or wider, and whether they're one-to-one in these sorts of informal settings and or whether in fact it's part of a group discussion, it's how much more important that opportunity for growth is becoming to the next wave of talent coming through. They want to see a route forward.
Yes. I mean, having said that, it's not clear that there, as I said previously, that your career is going to be linear. It only will not be, because things are, you know, the rate of change is increasing, not decreasing, in terms of, you know, what can you go and do? I mean, we look at some of the advanced therapeutics that were unheard of, you know, 8-9 years ago, which everybody gets excited about, but which are inordinately expensive. So you wonder about the commercial risk. But the bottom line is, and I've always said, you know, if you have an intellect and a curiosity and the ability to communicate well, and you use them, then, you know, there is no limit to what you can potentially aspire to. But you have to, all of those elements have to come together when an opportunity arises, and you sit back and look at it. And I no great secret, I did the usual yes, no listings of, you know, why not. And quite often I took the job anyway, even though there were more why nots in the list, because it just looked hugely interesting. And I was, you know, some of those drivers were intellectual, some of them were financial. But the other aspect of this, and this is a key part of the decision making, I had a very solid financial foundation because I had a high earning spouse. And, you know, so for me, the risk benefit ratio was slightly skewed because I knew we could live on her income alone.
Yeah, it allows you to explore a bit more, maybe, if you
absolutely
that position, yeah. You know, and I think, well, I guess one of the things, and you touched upon it really there, Paul, I think was, you know, it relies on the opportunities coming forward. No matter how well you aspire or want to do things, we're all governed by the right opportunity coming up.
Yes, and actually, there's two parts of that, Tony. One is, yes, the opportunities have to come up, but you have to see the opportunities when they come up. And I see so many people who are very linear in terms of you know, what is their horizon, and they only see a particular pathway. You will find, and I say this with all seriousness, when people are looking for leadership, they're looking for people who have a variety of experience. Now, you know, we can go into, you know, diversity and those aspects. I'm not specifically talking about that. I'm talking about experience in life and what you have done in your career. Because if you only have a single pathway, then you are very much in a little silo, and people will not look at you beyond that silo. So breadth is important as well as, you know, climbing a particular pathway, unless you've got a complete intellectual engagement with one area and that's your life. Fine, we need people like that. But if you're looking to spiral up and do lots of interesting things, then you have to see an opportunity when it hits you in the face and take it.
I think it sort of interests me, I guess, and that variety of experiences in one guise or another, and
Sure.
how it then helps shape your thinking and your problem solving and everything else. You know, do you think if you've just sort of come through education, if you like, interested in sciences, and you're drilled into learning the sciences and you're channeled to a degree, maybe onto higher degrees, do you think we could do more, or people should look to do more around broadening their experiences outside of the technical training side?
Yeah, this is a difficult one because there are people who are like myself, who are eclectic in their interests. You know, I'm not saying I'm a polymath, but you know, I have widely divergent interests which are beyond the pharmacology. But at core, I'll say this without shame, I am a geek at core. And I like to get into the weeds. Now, in a BD setting, you wouldn't have thought that would be too obvious, and/or can you do it? Well, the beauty of my job is I can get into the weeds with the science and have a really good, interesting conversations with some really brilliant people. But the other advantage is I don't have to do the work. That's somebody else's job. And that allows me to have that breadth of experience, because my colleagues who are, you know, various specialists, they also lots of different things. I agree, but the core element is they are responsible for the delivery. So I've got the best of both worlds. You know, I get to hear the interesting stuff. I get to suggest interesting aspects of what may be possible, etc. But for me, the delivery is a responsibility of people who I really, really enjoy working with, because they are they're collegiate. They help each other. Yeah, we have you know, the usual bun fight from time to time, but you know, the bottom line is it's an invigorating environment to be within. If you have that polymath,
yeah, you've got that that sort of variety of interests, I guess. And so looking back, I guess, you know, in all walks of life, people look back and think, oh, you know, that person inspires me, and it can be anyone from relatives to sports champions or somewhere in between. You know, it's kind of. But I guess, you know, if you look back, who or what's inspired you through the years?
Two people. One, because he was just brilliant, and that was Dr. Jean Borel, who was effectively the inventor of cyclosporin A, which made transplantation possible. He was just a visionary, and a nice visionary. I mean, some visionaries, and I could mention a few, which I won't, who are, you know, just not very nice people, but they are visionary. Take that aside. And the other one which is personal to me, and the pathos of this still gets to me. There was a physician at Sandoz who I was working with in the transplantation field and beyond, called Dr. Des O'Sullivan, and he took a chance on me because I was sales and marketing. He brought me into the R&D group against advice of other people in the organisation, and I shone for him. And the fact that he took that gamble is very meaningful for me. And sadly, at his funeral, because he had late stage Huntington's chorea, which is a dreadful disease to die of, and the number of people who came to his funeral and memorial service was enormous, because he had that empathy, the intellect to get to where he needed to be, but he did it with a degree of style, and everybody loved Des. And you talk to anybody who was part of that team, and he was exemplary. Big guy.
And I think sometimes you stand back and you just look at some people's qualities as an individual, sometimes that brings a team with them ultimately, and they say,
absolutely. Oh, he could be a complete so-and-so on occasion, but you know, the bottom line is that he had your back. Come on, and he I suppose it comes to one of the things that being in the industry has taught me is, do not be afraid of your higher echelons, and he never was. I mean, he was absolutely fearless, and he would go into bat for you, come what may. And bear in mind, you know, Sandoz was, you know, top 20 pharma even then. It's now, and it was a corporate entity, and he fought tooth and nail for his team.
Yeah, I think it's amazing how those leaders and senior players can shape the culture of somewhere. It isn't just
absolutely,
it's how they do it.
Yeah. But he would never get to the upper echelons because he didn't play the game.
He wouldn't play that game. Yeah, I think it's so. I guess now, it's been a pleasure in a conversation about your career and career generally, Paul, because I think this will lead into our Building Life Science Adventures conference, which again, Transcript have been very supportive of as we try and enthuse people and enlighten people about what careers are available and for employers how to recruit great people.
Can I leave you with two thoughts? And I said before, don't expect your life will be linear. It will be, especially nowadays. It's enjoy the variety. But I love this. Heraclitus, who was a Greek philosopher, said and everybody's heard this, the only constant in life is change, right? But I love the one from Benjamin Franklin when he said, when you are finished changing, you are finished.
I guess that's a really good way to look at it. I don't know who did the quote, but it was that sort of everything will work out in the end, and if it hasn't worked out yet, it's not the end.
Well, indeed, but the key thing is be adaptable.
And I guess that probably reflects what the future of the industry will demand, is adaptability.
We are accelerating change. We're not it's not slowing down, and I think it'll slow down anytime soon. Until we fixed all diseases, obviously, then we'll retire. Well,
I guess I was going to round out with saying, what would you tell or advice would you give a younger Paul Brentweight?
I think I've said it. Actually, I will say this. Don't pass the buck. If you make a mistake, own it and fix it, because reputation is everything. Friends, keep them. Flick, who's also on one of these sessions with you, I first met in 1979. We've worked together 3 times. I've never regretted it for a second.
And I'm sure the feeling's mutual, otherwise you wouldn't be working together now, is my guess.
Well, true.
It's a two-way relationship.
That's this week. That's this week. You can cut that bit out.
Paul, thank you so much for your time. I think there's lots of nuggets in there, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Okay, take care of yourself. Bye-bye.